Hello, my name is Alice, and I am currently a pre-service teacher. Today I'm delighted to present to you an integrated learning sequence designed for a Year 2 math lesson. This comprehensive plan aims to align teaching, learning, and assessment in a cohesive manner to provide students with a holistic educational experience. While the primary objective of these instructional lessons is to foster students' mathematical comprehension and understanding, it is essential to highlight that they will incorporate connections to other key learning areas, namely English, humanities and social sciences, science, and visual arts. Moreover, these lessons will intentionally integrate elements relevant to the cross-curriculum priority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, thus offering a well-rounded and culturally inclusive educational experience. The inclusion of the cross-curriculum priority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures is driven by the imperative to address closing the gap in education. By designing lessons to engage students in reconciliation, respect, and recognition, we endeavour to contribute to narrowing the educational disparities that exist. Through this approach, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students can perceive their identities and cultures authentically in the lessons, fostering a sense of belonging and thus bolstering their self-esteem. This will overall actively support full and meaningful participation from all students. This presentation provides the opportunity to demonstrate how my learning sequence is aligned with the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, commonly referred to as the APSDs. The standard I gave particular attention to within the initial set of standards is 1.4, Strategies for Teaching Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Students. This standard places a strong emphasis on a teacher's responsibility to exhibit a comprehensive knowledge and profound understanding of the impact of cultures, cultural identity, and linguistic backgrounds from those students with Indigenous backgrounds. I will delve further into the discussion about how the standard was embedded in the lesson. The development of these lessons has been guided by my deliberate intention to establish meaningful connections across multiple KLAs, as previously outlined. These were English, HASS, Science, and Visual Arts, and within these contexts of the subjects, an integration of the cross-curriculum has been implemented with particular emphasis on the 8 Ways of Learning framework. This framework is an Indigenous Australian pedagogical approach that integrates Indigenous ways of knowing, teaching, and learning in contemporary education. By incorporating this framework, it allows for the enhancement of educational experiences of both Indigenous and non-Indigenous students by acknowledging and respecting Indigenous knowledge systems and cultural practices. Over the 5 sequence lessons, 5 of the 8 ways of learning have been incorporated. These include story sharing, non-linear, non-verbal, symbols and images, land links, and community links. The initial day of this planned lesson sequence commences with a deeply enriching experience for the Year 2 students. It begins with an elder from the local Indigenous community taking the role of a storyteller. The elder captivates the students with the Dreamtime narrative, Tiddalik the Frog, skillfully weaving cultural wisdom and the concept of time into the tale. This inclusion offers students an invaluable glimpse into Indigenous ways of thinking while augmenting their understanding of time. This introductory lesson lays the foundation for the upcoming lessons. This one in particular is dedicated to time exploration, where students share their existing knowledge. I will then provide the students with a diagnostic or even a formative worksheet, which I will then use to evaluate the students' initial mathematical comprehension of time. This lesson embodies 3 of the 8 ways of learning. So story sharing through the elder's narrative, symbols and images encapsulated in the Dreamtime story, and community links exemplified by the elder's presence. For the second day of this structured lesson sequence, continuity is maintained with the return of the elder, poised to share another illuminating Dreamtime narrative, the Rainbow Serpent. As yesterday, the elder will then engage the students, delving into another narrative in its correlation with the concept of time. This seamless incorporation not only deepens their cultural understanding, but then again establishes a valuable connection to the KLA English. After that, I will then take over, continue on, and expand from yesterday's maths lesson. Now, the focus of this lesson shifts towards digital clocks, equipping students with essential time-telling skills in the modern era. To consolidate their learning, I will also task them with another worksheet encompassing both analog and digital clock representations. Now, this lesson continues to exemplify the principles of the 8 ways of learning. Exact same as yesterday, it will be story sharing through the elder, symbols and images through the Dreamtime story, and community links with the continued presence of the elder. On the third day, this lesson commences with a thorough review of the students' evolving grasp of the concept of time, drawing insights from the formative assessments conducted on days 1 and 2. This is designed to clarify any of their lingering misunderstandings or uncertainties. Once the review is complete, I will focus the shift to HASS. I will be using a PowerPoint to present visual aids, introducing the students to the ingenious ways in which Indigenous Australians harness natural elements to decipher time. Vivid images will include the sun, moon, stars, and natural elements. This inclusion will serve as a catalyst for engaging the students' critical thinking. Once that is done, I will then conduct a whole class discussion by which the students are encouraged to speculate on the potential applications of these elements in regards to time. The PowerPoint will then explain how these elements were used to tell time, giving the students the opportunity to discuss their initial predictions. To conclude the lesson, the Return of the Elder will impart invaluable insights into the cultural significance of time in the form of a yarning circle. Now, this lesson integrates 4 of the 8 ways of learning. Story sharing will occur when they partake in a yarning circle, symbols and images through visual aids, land links by connecting the content to the environment and universe, and community links through the elder's perspective. Now, with this lesson, I might also add that it touches briefly on science, but it will be further discussed on day 5. Day 4 will begin with an English lesson dedicated to delving into the connection between Indigenous Dreamtime stories and the concept of time. This lesson unfolds a thoughtful review of the Dreamtime story Tiddalik the Frog as done in day 1. The students will then reflect on its implications for understanding how to tell the time. I will then engage in a whole class discussion prompting questions such as how did the story explain the passage of time, how did the season play a role in the story, and what did the characters in the story do different during season. This lesson will enrich their knowledge and understanding for the relations of time. This lesson will then transition into a visual arts lesson. So drawing inspirations from the discussions surrounding Tiddalik the Frog, students will be presented with captivating arrays of Indigenous artworks, with each art piece thoughtfully depicting various seasons and weather. In response, the students will then engage in a collaborative discussion, exploring interplay between the story and the changing seasons. They will then be tasked to select a scene from the book and craft an illustrative artwork that presents the season portrayed in their chosen scene. To end this lesson, the students will proudly share their artistic creation, fostering an atmosphere of creative learning. Now, this lesson incorporates 4 of the 8 ways of learning. Story sharing is clear, where the students will share their illustrations. Non-verbal learning is seen through communication through their visual storytellings, symbols and images through the displayed artworks and their symbolism, as well as land links through Tiddalik the Frog being revisited, forging connections once again to seasons. Now for the last lesson, it will unfold with a science exploration centered on the observable transformations that transpire in both the celestial realm and the earthly landscape. An overarching theme emerges when the students embark on a comparative analysis contrasting Indigenous Australian perspectives on timekeeping with contemporary methodologies. The inquiry will lead to a compelling examination of sundials as a historical timekeeping device. I will then use a PowerPoint to present students with intricate workings of sundials. Drawing upon my own scientific understanding, I will justify the use of natural elements such as the sun and shadows in this unique timekeeping way. This lesson will then continue on to visual arts, where the concept of sundials persists as the focal point. A YouTube video will demonstrate how to make the sundial. Now, after watching the video, the students will venture outdoors to test their sundials that they will create themselves, while also engaging in observation. Now, once they return to class, they will engage in a thoughtful discussion, sharing insights from their observations. This lesson incorporates only 2 of the 8 ways of learning framework. So land links by immersing the students into the environment, fostering connections to land and place, and non-linear learning as students will be constructing sundials. Now, this lesson overall shows the importance of experiential learning as well as incorporation of scientific knowledge and cultural appreciation. Thank you for joining me today. These are the references I used for this PowerPoint.